evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of No Limits. This is Scott Morgan, Roth, the Motor City Madmouth, and glad to have everybody with us. They have my astute wife and the woman in charge of the South Florida Tribune website, and my co-host on the broadcast, No Limits, Candy Eveling. Good evening, Candy.
Good evening, Scott.
And, of course, David Levin. My goodness, good to see David Levin back on the broadcast. Looking forward to getting some more Levin action before long. In fact, David Levin's earned him a one-way ticket to No Limits. Of course, it didn't hurt that he helped create the name either, right, Mr. Levin?
I took a shot, it stuck, and here we are today. How's everybody doing?
I'm doing all right. Election 2020.
Yeah, I heard something was going on tonight. I figured I would get away from all that strife and maybe talk about it instead of watch it.
Okay.
Sounds like a good idea to me.
All right, so Mr. Levin, with that said, I'm going to let you go ahead and lead the way in this broadcast, and I'll just be the complimentary piece. I know it's not easy for a guy like me to do it, but then again,
great.
I've done a lot of things far more difficult than this, so I'm going to defer to you tonight. David, go ahead, take it away.
It's a hard act to follow, Scott. Yeah, we all chuckle a little bit.
If anybody can do it, it's you, though.
I believe that I probably could, and I thank you for the confidence. So tonight is probably the most important night of the calendar year for us Americans. An election with everything on the line, so much strife going on in this world, and the need for there to be more harmony than there is in our great country. And I know you both would agree with that.
Yes.
It doesn't matter so much what side of the fence you stand on. The important thing is that you get out and vote and you make your vote heard. It's also important that the issues that this country faces, whether you are Republican or Democrat or an independent, black, white, different religious perspectives, you understand that there is a lot of work to be done here, not just right after we vote, but in the coming year. I'm a proud American. I don't need to discuss my political party. I've done this now 8 different times where I voted. My first election was Clinton in 92, which tells you basically around the age that I am. My son voted today for the first time, 21 years old, and he told me nobody wins in this election. And I said, everybody wins in this election because you make your voice heard regardless of the outcome. But he's scared. And we talked for a long time. I saw a side of him that I had never seen because there are issues for him at 21 that he is facing that I faced it in my 20s when I voted for Clinton or I voted for somebody else or I voted the first time in a primary. And when I look back at this year, which you all will agree is maybe the hardest year we've ever faced as a country, I wonder to myself, where do we go next?
Completely agree. Completely agree. What happens next? What happens once we get a result from the election?
And we're not going to get one tonight, I don't think. I think it's going to be a few days out.
And what happens when we do get one? Are both sides going to come together, or are they going to fight?
Right.
You know, it's funny when you talk about this election. First election I voted for was probably in my mind, David, more clear-cut when I had Ronald Reagan.
Right.
Ronald Reagan to me was as clear-cut of all the presidents that I've been alive to see in my lifetime. I was born, mind you, when John F. Kennedy was in office.
Right. You're a few years older, so it's different. I get that.
Right. But Ronald Reagan was easy for me. And I can tell, I don't mind telling you some of the people that I voted for. Reagan twice, of course, and then George, his successor, George W. Bush. But then I couldn't vote for him again. So the last time I voted myself, David and Candy, was when Ross Perot was running, and I chose to vote for Ross Perot.
Right.
Since then, I've come out of the hibernation to vote for this election, understanding the nature of why we had to do it this time.
Right.
So if it took me that long to vote again, then that more or less reemphasizes, David and Candy, what you're talking about, how important this election is, no matter who we voted for. So continue on. I just wanted to bring that out.
That's great. And Reagan is such a great example of why it's important to vote. that was one of the more, it was a landslide vote, I believe, for both his elections, wasn't it, Scott, where he was just the overwhelming favorite.
Yeah. In fact, David, if my memory serves me correctly, I believe he defeated Jimmy Carter like 42-8 states.
Right.
And then the other one, he took on Walter Mondale, was 49-1. And I think the only state that Walter Mondale ended up winning was Minnesota.
Right. He won his own state.
And that was it.
Right. There are reasons for that.
Okay.
Reagan galvanized the country. He was the father figure that we needed after the 70s.
Right.
He was the cowboy image riding off into the sunset, where he, maybe John Wayne it, that kind of imagery. The 70s were tough for us, and I was born in them and grew up and remember being, a kid, and the 70s and 80s were tough. And we needed somebody like Reagan, and don't ever tell my father this because, he didn't vote for him. But so many good things. He made the country feel good about itself again.
Right.
I don't know if the country feels good about itself right now. If you look at everything we've done. I sent you the notes and we talked a little bit about it and I shared it, for you and Candy. We're in a situation where we started this year and there was a lot of hope. Yeah. We were starting a new decade, our economy was good. We focused on what was important. And then it took a downfall. We had, George Floyd and we had Breonna Taylor. And then we had a pandemic. And we lost our sports and we lost our way and the country closed down. I'm 48 years old and I don't remember the country being this beaten, except for maybe 9/11. And it continues to mushroom. And I don't know, maybe you can shed some light on it. When have we been like this? Besides maybe Vietnam and 9/11, we've never really faced this. We're getting people to talk about racial change and inequality and COVID, and we don't like each other right now.
The only thing that I could do to add light to that is during the Iranian hostage crisis when we were pushed around.
Right.
I remember when Jimmy Carter boycotted the Olympics, and we had a whole war going on. And I went to the '84 Olympics in LA when the Russians returned the favor. The first story I wrote for the Detroit Monitor, David and Candy, was don't boycott the Olympics. And I had an English teacher that graded me down a half a grade because she didn't agree with me. But if it went from an A to A-, it didn't bother me because I told a woman I got published. Deal with it. Nobody in the class will deal with it. But Ronald Reagan, people were very afraid of Ronald Reagan. They were afraid that this cowboy that appeared in the Westerns was going to blow that country to smithereens. And as a result, the Iranians went ahead and released these hostages, knowing full well that when you call a person a warmonger like they did Reagan, better to let him go. Now, I had the good fortune, for anybody that ever gets a chance to do it, to visit the Ronald Reagan Library out in California. It was an incredible place. And I have a couple of his books at home.
That's awesome.
So, but yeah, David, you're right. You're really on target here. It's been a while, but the Iranian crisis that led to all the domino effect, and then 9/11 rival it, and Vietnam was not a very good time either. But this, to me, takes on such a meaning that not only do you have a pandemic, but you have a lot of wars around the country, a virus. So you have so many things colliding at one time. Go ahead, Candy.
I think part of it for me is 9/11 was a day, and then we reacted to that day.
Right.
Now we have a pandemic, and the pandemic wasn't one day. The pandemic spent how many months of this year? It shut down the country. 9/11 shut us down sports-wise for what, a week?
Right.
Week and a half.
Like that, yeah.
So we missed 1 or 2 weeks, whereas here we missed a couple of months. And a lot of people use sports as their release, as an outlet to
Right.
take their mind off things. And we didn't have that for so long. And I think that's really affected us. And with all the political unrest, like you said, the George Floyd, Black Lives Matter, all of that has caused divisiveness as well.
Well, I think you also, when you factor into the equation that the President of the United States, in my opinion, underestimated the significance of the pandemic, and all of a sudden would wind up with COVID-19, then on top of a crumbling economy, you're talking about many people, hundreds of thousands that have lost their lives. And then you have a 1-2 punch for all the wrong reasons. And I'm not here to criticize the president or not to criticize, but when you're not proactive and you're reactive, that to me is a recipe for disaster, which is why you're dealing with a lot of what's going on right now, and the stage where this country is at.
I think he underestimated it, and I'm not here to criticize because I couldn't do what they do on the daily. We're sports writers.
Right.
We deal with sports. We don't deal with politics. I tried that in college, and I changed my major twice. So I think that when you're given an opportunity like this, and it's a grand stage, and everybody's watching, it's an underestimation. I really think that he may have done some things differently that would have changed some things. I don't know. I'm not passing blame. What I'm saying, though, is that we're also a country that always plays with a chip on our shoulder.
Right.
And I'm going to say everybody has some culpability here. People really didn't listen. They didn't quarantine. I mean, people did, but they didn't. It's almost like, we dare you to hit us with this COVID-19. We can beat it. We'd be in better shape if we listened like other countries. And whether you want to call it the China illness or, something that goes on in France or Europe or whatever it is, we as Americans still have a responsibility to heed the warnings, and we didn't. It's a screwed up situation. I could use more foul language, but I know this is a family show.
Right.
And I worry about it. And you know that I've had my issues with the pandemic itself, where I was down for a while, and I was dealing with symptoms which were just awful. I worry what happens now because the pandemic is still here. It's not going away, regardless of what we're being told. Florida had another, record-breaking number a few days ago. Other states are showing problems. New York is still showing problems. The Midwest is now starting to show that it's dealing with it. And I know Candy's shaking her head.
Oh yeah, Wisconsin's on the rise.
Right, and I was going to say Wisconsin and Minnesota are getting hit right now.
Well, Michigan's probably headed in a bad direction too. So all part of the Midwest that you're talking about, Dave. So
what I worry about now is that we have one night here where people are casting their votes, and it's great that everybody got out, and it's mass numbers of people voting over the months and absentee ballots and sending in whatever they've got and all this stuff. And then what happens? Because whoever wins this election has to fix this, or at least take an attempt to fix it. And are we going to get the same crap, that's as far as I'll go, that we're getting fed now, or is there going to be a new lease on reality with either the same guy in office or the new guy who swears he can help fix it? Well, if he could help fix it, he should have tried to help fix the economy when he was vice president. And I'm just saying that there are similarities there. It's funny, and Scott, I don't know if maybe you jump off of this. All of these politicians who have been in office for years, both sides of the fence, Mitch McConnell, Pelosi, Schumer, whoever, they all say they want to make change. They've all been in office for over 30 years, and they haven't changed anything yet, Scott. So why do they think they can do it now?
Well, I mean, politicians do what they do best, right?
Right. Well, yeah.
I mean, I was they all seem to think they have answers, but we've been going on for the longest period of time. And the one thing we can't lose sight of, David and Candy, is we have the Affordable Care Act as well.
Right.
So right now we're dealing with whether or not this thing will hold up in the Supreme Court. Do you go with a president who, a potential future president that was vice president when it was in place? And I got to tell you right now, the Affordable Care Act saved my life.
Right. I know it's helped my parents, so I do understand.
So now do I have a guy who the incumbent is, our current, who's looking to rip it apart, where we don't even know if there's a succession plan in place? We don't know.
Right. He hasn't discussed it.
Right. But I don't know. Did you have a chance to watch that 60 Minutes interview with the two presidential candidates at all?
I saw some of it. I didn't see all of it. I have been doing the smart thing and walking away from politics for the last few weeks, just because it's just you'll understand. I mean,
well,
it's unnerving. It's stressful.
You know, the only reason I watched it is probably because of the word intrigue. And, you know, being an old school journalist like I am, and that CBS employed a couple of good interviewers, and me being from the old Dan Rather school where the camera doesn't blink, Marshall McLuhan, the medium is the message.
Right.
Where I felt like I had to utilize my professional background to try to understand the candidates in their entirety, not formulating an opinion one way or the other, but trying to play the objective cap there.
Right.
And that's all I'm looking. Again, I'm not trying to vary this with politics, but I made very close attention. I was going to watch it very closely. And by the end of that time, I either kind of reinforced what my instincts were when I made my decision to vote, or whether I would second guess them. So it was all about being more educated with, as Gene Hackman would say in Hoosiers, let's see what hand I've been dealt.
Right.
And that's how I tried to approach it there, David, Candy.
That's completely the right way to do it. My grandmother told me years ago, God rest her soul, and I was in college and I was studying political science, and yeah, Mom, I'm using the degree again tonight, so when you watch the podcast, you'll understand. You're never really voting for somebody. You're always voting against somebody, because there's no winner until there's a winner elected.
Right.
This has been knocked down, drag out. They sounded like two babies on their first debate. You know, we were more interested in a bug than we were listening to what Pence and Harris had to say. It's almost like, let's just get this over with. My friend, I'm going to use this analogy a little weird. He asked his 8-year-old son, who would you vote for? Because they were talking about it in school. And I don't know how you talk about an election in school, but you talk about it in school. And the 8-year-old says, I'm going to vote for Trump because it's only 4 more years of suck. If I vote for Biden, I may get 8 years of suck. And I wonder if that's the initiative people are taking. Let's go ahead and just get rid of this.
Very interesting.
Yeah. I thought you'd laugh at that, actually.
Well, I'm really, no, I'm really not. I'm probably going to put it on the old serious face this time, David. And
I can see it, yeah.
Very interesting. Now, understand what we've had to deal with the past 4 years. We're dealing with a president that loves to tweet, work on Twitter and social media instead of State of the Union address.
Right.
Okay. Now, again, folks out here that are watching this broadcast, take it for whatever it's worth. I'm out there just laying it out there. I'm not taking a side one way or the other, because we know nowadays communication has changed drastically. Okay. Now we have email. Before we used to have snail mail. Okay. We have Twitter. We don't have State of the Union. We have social media. We don't have State of the Union.
Right.
But I know one thing. How many states, are there in the country?
50.
51.
Puerto Rico.
No, state of confusion.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. So 52.
Well, yeah, that's true. If you count Washington, D.C. as 51 and then state of confusion 52. So and now, see, who's trying to get who to laugh?
I get it. I get it.
Well, it's what it is.
So how do you
confusion, folks? That's what we're dealing with.
How do you fix it? And I know it doesn't take It's not going to be done in a day. It's not going to be done in a month. The House and the Senate are still up for grabs. They're going to fight. They're going to fight back and forth like a tennis match. We have real problems. We have real problems every day. And everything runs around in a cycle. We don't have the freedoms we had in January.
Right.
We don't have, the right to go out and not wear a mask. We don't have this. We don't have that. We have what we have. And I am worried to death over what happens.
I'm worried to death that we have lost as a society respect for others.
Right.
Respect for somebody that disagrees with my opinion or disagrees with protecting others. I mean, part of this whole pandemic and shutting down and wearing masks, do you respect the other person next to you enough that, you know what, I'm going to wear a mask, not for me, but for them? Or disrespect, I don't view the same way on this topic, so I'm going to vote it down, and I'm not going to work with the other party to push legislation that is good for the general public.
I'll give you an example real quick, Candy. I live in an area of town in North Florida where I am literally 1 mile between Duval and Clay County. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Duval County is still under a mask ordinance. Clay County is not. And if you walk into the neighborhood grocery store, there's a 6'5" guy who walks in the other day without a mask on. And they tell the guy, you got to wear a mask. And he looks at the clerk who's bagging groceries and says, make me. That's the kind of thing we're dealing with here, because there's so much similarity to what is an ordinance and what is a law.
Mm-hmm.
And fortunately, where I live, there haven't been many cases. But if I go to Publix, I've got to deal with the backlash and the hassle. I wear a mask wherever I go for health reasons, and we're not going to discuss that. But you guys understand this. I could walk up to somebody and say, put the mask on because my health depends on it. They're not going to listen.
Right.
There are a lot of nice people in this great country of ours, and we've seen that through this pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
But we've also seen people just be real yahoos about it.
Yep.
And I don't know where we go with that. First of all, I'm not going to engage with a 6'5" guy. I'm 5'7".
Nope.
Not even close.
I wouldn't either.
I'll send him to Scott. But
Thanks, I appreciate it.
He'll talk him down.
I think as we talk, we're constantly going around a circle here.
Mm-hmm.
We're affected by everything we do. We're logical people. Yep. I know you off this camera, so I know, your personality. I know things that go on. People that we've had on, Scott, for excuse me, we've had on as guests. We know their personalities. We know that they are good people. Whether it's Mark Littell or we're talking to Stuart Hack or we've talked to Mel Farr, Jim Donnan, great people, and there's sports involved, so there's a difference there too. But they're genuinely great people. I want everybody to be a great person.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm naive enough to think that it's going to happen. But I know it's not right now. And that upsets me.
What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go ahead and read a bunch of words, okay? Mm-hmm. And I want both of you to give me your interpretation of what you think they mean, okay? We're going to have a little drill here, okay?
Uh-oh.
Wait, is this a psychology exam, basically, or not?
Well, I got two good communicators on the end, so if it is, so what? Don't worry about it.
Candy.
Yes.
Rorschach test.
Why not? We're going to have a little bit of fun with this thing here. So we're lighten it up. So I'm going to we're going to play the word game, okay?
Go ahead.
Ready?
Yeah, go ahead.
1, racial inequality. Candy, how do you view that?
I view, I can say from my perspective that for many years women weren't treated the same.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a perspective that's probably very different than what you have, Scott. Then probably, and I understand that I don't really understand racial inequality because I haven't been racially inequal. You know, I'm not Black, I'm not Asian, I'm, you know, living in America, and I'm a white female. But just from being a female and being, how should I put it, looked over for certain things, I understand inequality.
Mhm.
And I understand that it needs to be suppressed. We don't need inequality.
And David and I could probably answer the fact that we're both Jewish, right? So
Yeah, I was gonna.
Mhm.
could be judged in
Jewish,
that
Jewish, yeah,
respect as well.
exactly.
Mhm.
And we don't need to even go further with that. We're Jewish.
Right.
It's just the way it is.
We're just trying to have general definitions what each and every
Right.
word stands for. That's
Yep.
all the purpose of this whole drill is. Friend. David?
Friend,
Friends. Or friend, either one.
decency.
Candy?
Someone I can count on.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay. Foes.
Democracy.
Candy?
Ooh. Opposition.
There you go. I like that.
I like that.
All right, good. And now this is how we're going to play this game here, okay? Political strife, Candy.
Division.
David?
This election.
Okay, that's good. Again,
Mhm.
this is what we're trying to get
Yep.
out of this.
Election.
Okay, but that's what I'm asking you guys for, okay? Rampant disease.
Misinformation.
Candy?
I'm going to say death.
Okay.
That's good.
COVID-19, David?
Never ending.
Candy?
Changes my freedoms.
Good.
Political unrest.
This election again, because it
Okay.
encompasses everything.
All right, political
Divisive.
unrest. You're saying, David, this election.
Yeah.
Candy?
Divisiveness.
That's not the word. But all right, you want to use that one? We can put that up. Political unrest.
Division. I mean,
All right, no problem. Fear, Candy.
riots.
David?
I was going to use rioting.
That's
So
okay.
it's okay. Yeah, it's the first thing I thought to my head.
Riots, and then there's rioting, and we
Right.
got Teddy Dose of that in Minnesota
Right.
and Kenosha, Wisconsin. That's all right.
Yeah.
Election day,
Conclusion.
Candy.
A new beginning.
Messed up my schedule today in a lot of different fronts. That's okay.
I bet.
I had to throw that in there. Freedom,
America.
I was going to say America.
Yeah.
unity,
Togetherness.
Continuity.
Decision 2020,
Scary.
Uneasy.
what's next? Boy, a little bit.
That
of
one's
silence.
tough. That one's tough.
Hopefully dinner, but how about rest?
I don't even know what the word "what's next" is, but when it comes to rest,
Meaning, hopefully once this is done, whatever side we've discussed, that people will take a deep breath, rest, and maybe we'll start liking each other again.
Okay, Candy.
What exactly was the word again?
What's next?
What's next? I'm hoping an end to the pandemic.
Me too.
I can't wait till we go on vacation. That'll be what's next for me.
Dude, I just want to go out and have pizza.
There you go.
Tomorrow, let's start with tomorrow.
What's next? When we get up there, we're going to catch up with you the next time. So that's what's next.
That's great. Yeah.
All right, voting.
Responsibility.
Andy?
Oh, you took the word right out of my.
We didn't take the word out of your mouth.
No, I understand that.
Just giving her a hard time.
An American right.
Yeah.
Challenges.
Never ending.
Okay.
Coming at you from all sides.
That's good.
Okay. Voter.
Freedom.
My inherent right to be a voter.
Divisiveness.
Candidates.
Political parties.
I'll give you mine. Donald Trump.
Wow.
Okay.
That's a direct hit.
That was.
That was, yeah, that's
all right. Doesn't matter. I slide in every once in a while.
No, yeah, go ahead.
Leadership.
Questionable.
Someone I would hope we could look up to.
Okay. I'll say lack thereof.
Okay, I like that.
That's fine.
Historic events.
This election.
Yeah, this election. We'll both keep that one.
I'll say historic events, everything we've missed all year because of all this nonsense.
That's good. That's
We've had lots of them this year.
We can't get this back, guys. Remember that too. I had just thought about that. For everything that's changed, we're not going to get this back. I worry, and I don't worry so much about my son. My daughter's 13. I haven't talked a lot about it with her, but, she's been quarantined. She's been sick. She's had to do virtual school. She doesn't see her friends. She's not going to get any of this back. Ben can deal with it more readily than Taylor can.
What about all these graduates that didn't have an opportunity to go to their commencement exercise?
Exactly. I was going to mention that too. This has affected everybody.
Right. Or the scholarships that aren't going to be out there now because they haven't had the revenue because the sports haven't been playing. I mean, all the people that lost their jobs.
Right.
All right, let's go one more. Black Lives Matter.
Still an issue.
This point, never ending.
Yeah.
Right. So
we've been having that issue for how long? How many years?
My attitude is Black lives do matter, and with all due respect, folks, all lives matter.
Right.
I do believe that, but you have to put them you have to put them hand in hand, not be able to pick on one or the other. But meanwhile, I guess my rant of the broadcast will be why NBA players figure that they can go out there and decide we don't want to play basketball, and wonder why the sport is plummeting with their ratings and popularity. We understand the majority of the players in there are minorities, and I get that, okay? But if they think they're going to solve a problem that dates back to Abe Lincoln and way before then folks, that isn't going to happen.
Well, I think I know what our next topic of our next show is going to be.
Sure you do, because that's the thing called GMTM, stands for Great Minds Think Alike. GMTM.
Yes, yeah. Okay, guys.
So when you put things in perspective tonight, and I know that it's good to have these little exercises because that's really what they are.
Right.
Okay? Decision 2020, it's called the TBD, to be determined. We don't know what's going to happen. We really don't. After this broadcast, it'll be up there. It'll be people who will review what we've done. Well, they'll agree and disagree, which is okay. It's a democracy. We're all going to be looking at, many of us will be staying up late tonight in the most anticipated election on the planet, wondering who wins. And we may not know for a while, or maybe we might. Maybe this election might be a lot more lopsided than we think because of the anticipation level leading up to it. I guess the one thing that we can't lose sight of is whether one candidate or the other will get more votes because we're just simply angry at the other candidate. That will lead to the emotional aspect of this whole event.
Which leads to our neighbors being angry at each other for no real apparent reason. Social media is such a exciting and dangerous thing, and I'm going to circle around that. In 80, when we elected Reagan, we didn't have that.
Right.
In 84, when we re-elected him, we didn't have that. As technology gets better, our hatred and our divisiveness sorry guys.
Okay.
Sorry about that. As the years go by, our anger and our divisiveness gets worse because technology allows it to be that way. We have so many channels that we can use to voice our opinions, to make our feelings known, to say we hate this, to say we hate that. We are a creature of our own habit, and we're also an enemy of our own habit, and we need to remember that.
I think the one thing that people have to understand, and I know I could be sarcastic with this and try to be humorous, so let's make sure we keep it in the proper context, okay?
Sure.
Nowadays, the whole theme is people hate people.
Yes.
They really do. I mean, I often joke around about it, and I don't really hate people deep down inside. But I do hate them in some respects because, number one, they're putting us in a position where they're not taking care of themselves by masking up. So we're developing this pandemic because of the negligence of others. We're all nervous and fearful of one another because you don't know what's going to happen. So I don't care whether you're the president of the United States, John Elway, and we're playing football right now during a pandemic with outbreaks. We've had a lot of seasons that finally concluded and outbreaks as a result. But the one thing we can't forget about is what about how does the world perceive the United States of America? Are they going to be very nervous about dealing with Donald Trump? Is Joe Biden going to be the guy who will be a calming influence, or is he going to be the new Jimmy Carter where we're going to get stepped on? And the thing that we don't know is beyond just the presidential candidates themselves, what happens with the vice presidential candidates? Now, on yesterday's edition, I believe on the Sports Exchange, as well as the baseball broadcast, okay, if you think about the fact that Tony La Russa is a 76-year-old manager, okay, why am I bringing this up on this broadcast? I'll tell you why. Donald Trump is 74 years of age. Joe Biden will turn 78 years old, okay, and he'll be 82 by the end of his term should he get elected. So we have to wonder if, heaven forbid, one or both of these two guys don't live out their term, where does leadership go based on this vice presidential candidate? Right. And that's the biggest unknown variable a lot of us don't know about.
Right. Mm-hmm. It's something to think about. I think there are a lot of variables that we have to think about down the road, but for right this moment, we concentrate on what happens tonight and we build on it. And you make a great point. I don't know enough to say I feel comfortable with this side or that side should something like that happen.
Right.
And I'm not going to make a comment that will come back and bite me in the butt. I'm fairly straightforward, but I'm also not willing to talk out of the side of my mouth. I can only deal with what happens tonight, and I really don't think we're going to find out who wins tonight. I think it's going to be a few days down the road, and I think that there's going to be some politics involved in it. I think there's going to be a recount. I think there's going to be people saying, oh, this happened or that happened, or I'm not willing to admit defeat. Mitt Romney didn't expect to lose the second election. Remember, it took him quite a while to come out of his cave and admit and offer his concession speech. Same thing for Clinton, because we really didn't think, with everything we heard, that Trump would win by such a landslide. Let's hope tonight, whatever happens, we're all still friends tomorrow. Or a week from now.
That we all can accept what happened.
We all need to put on our big boy, panties on, our, big boy, pants, and we need to be adults with this. Whatever happens too, we're still going to be complaining.
Mm-hmm.
We're still going to be mad at each other. Hopefully, we can still be friends. I can walk outside and see the guy that's got, the Trump sign on his door. If he loses, I hope he's still waving at people as he's going by the next day. Same thing for somebody with a Biden, placard in the grass. Mm-hmm. I just don't know what to think. And I think we've done a really good job tonight talking amongst three people about our feelings about how things are now and how things are going to be. We are, we're in for a big shakeup no matter what.
Right.
It's either going to stay the same, or it's going to, change dramatically. I'm kind of excited about it, but I'm scared. It's not like being in college and there being an election, and you do the rah thing, and it's new and it's exciting, and you got to see Clinton play his saxophone on our Arsenio Hall and all that stuff, because back then that was cool.
Right.
Now it's serious. And I've learned my lessons in the last two elections that not everything really is what it seems.
Right.
The one thing I can say about Trump, and I'm not divulging good, bad, or whether, because there are things about each candidate I can say I like, and there are things I can say I really don't like. What Trump did when he first got elected was he followed up. He started signing these bills. Like him or not, he held his word. And then it fell off. Are we going to get more of that? Are we going to get the last 6 months where we were wondering whether he underestimated everything and another, 200,000 people die and rates are going up? And if I go to Walmart and I'm already masked up and I'm gloved, is this going to kill me?
Right.
Those are the things I worry about. And I'm not, I'm worried. I'm worried for you. I'm worried for my kids. I'm worried for my mom and dad.
Well, I mean, my biggest fear right now, David and Candy, is if things are tough now, it's not getting, we may be looking at the second wave next year. Is there any end in sight? And if I were a betting man, and I'm not a betting man, I say no, it really isn't. Even when you get a vaccine, okay, how long will it take for that vaccine to go through? What about the side effects of all COVID-19? When the damage is done internally, what happens later on? And those are the unknown variables that we don't know. The science will, at some point or another, have to provide us with some answers.
Right.
What are the long-term effects? Even if you were asymptomatic, did it affect you that you don't even know about?
Yeah, those are the things I dealt with a few months ago, as we've talked about. And, I was really sick. Thankfully, everything turned out all right. I've really enjoyed this conversation, and I'm glad that we're able to sit comfortably and casually and be able to talk about this. When we talked about going on the show, you said pick a topic, and it just stuck in my head. It was the perfect time.
It was.
I haven't really discussed my political views. I don't want to. I'm afraid people will misunderstand. But this has been a good forum, and I really appreciate you guys letting me bring that topic up so we can discuss it.
It's my pleasure. Normally, I don't do politics, religion. I think it's better to stay away from those. But the one thing I refuse to do is I refuse to not keep an open mind. My goal is to keep an open mind and everything, but the only way that I can do it is I have to realize that the people I'm involved with don't cross a line.
Right.
You know, make a judgment call like this. I follow my instincts. Now, I'm going to tell you one thing I really enjoyed doing recently on a edition of the Sports Exchange with George Eichler and I enjoyed bringing Duke Sims, the former New York Yankee catcher and Detroit Tiger. I gave him more latitude to talk politics more than most. However, during the pre-production, I knew where he was going to go, and therefore I was very conscious of what he did. And I think that was one of the best shows we've ever done here. Yeah. Sure. But you've got to know the people you're working with before you make a judgment call. And I think when I make a judgment call, it all falls on me. Not Candy, not you, but it's on me to deal with the repercussions. So you have to know who you're working with. And I'm comfortable with the team that we have here, which is why I allow certain things. I believe that freedom of speech is important. We can't lose sight of the fact that that's one of our original amendments, but making sure that freedom of speech is not abused. So I'm comfortable with it. And you know, Candy, David, and a lot of the people that we work with are family to me. I'm nothing without the people I have to work with. I don't care what anybody says about me. Say what you want. But unless I have a very good supporting cast around me, I can't do this all by myself. If I want to sit there and talk to myself, I'll scream at the wall. It won't yell at me, and I won't get any feedback, and nor do I frankly care. But
Candy, he doesn't know that. It might yell back at him.
Yeah, it does. I know. Okay. I have tunnel vision, and I have bad hearing when it comes to certain outrageous circumstances. Okay. What it is, but one thing I don't have the lack of the ability to do is making sure that people are laughed, that we try to keep things loose on the broadcast, because I think that we're always trying to take a negative and turn it into a positive. And I know that's not easy during these times, but we have to battle through it no matter what. Will 2021 be as tough as 2020? Potentially it could.
Right.
What are we going to do? Let it just drag us down, or are we going to keep battling as hard as we can and try to do that? We just have to just grind it the only way we know how.
You just stay focused. Well, thank you guys.
I think the word that comes to me for me is respect. Again, I think the three of us have a respect for each other that we don't need to talk what side of the fence we're on, because we all agree that no matter what side of the fence you're on, you have a right to your opinion, and I have a right to mine.
Yes.
All right.
And remember, whatever Candy says is right, and
and the wife is always right?
Right.
All right. Well, before we get off the broadcast, David Levin, I want everybody to know who you're right for, besides the fact that you're right for us too. Okay.
Right for you too.
So let it all out there, Mr. Levin.
Okay. You can find me on Twitter at DM719907. You can also find me at RealTealDavid1. I can be read on fansided.com, where my work has been featured on Marlin Maniac and on Black and Teal. I am now beginning to write for Last Word on Sports. And in the coming months, be on the lookout for realtealmedia.com, which is doing things in North Florida, where we'll be focusing on football, baseball, and other happenings in the state.
And also expect David Levin's airtime to increase as he feels able to do so. And I'm looking forward to having David here on the broadcast, because I'm telling you one thing, David, to me, you're a dynamo, and I enjoy having you on the broadcast.
This was a lot of fun, guys. Thank you so much for this.
All right, Thank you. Spit it out before I go out there and spit it out for the final time here on election night 2020.
So go out and vote if you didn't already. Respect everybody. Mask up.
Please.
And yes, please. And follow us on southfloridatribune.com. Go to the website. You can catch any of our broadcasts there. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Scott, you know the whole drill.
So I'll go ahead and give the drill in its entirety. Okay. All right. As far as social media is concerned, Candy's right. You can follow us on Twitter at Tribune South. That's at Tribune South. Facebook and Instagram, South Florida Tribune. Follow us there. YouTube channel, South Florida Tribune. I'll give you 6 reasons why you should subscribe to it, okay? Sports Exchange, No Limits, 108 Stitches Baseball Talk, Real and the Rare, Fantasy Football, South Florida Tribune Podcast. We have a broadcast for everybody's needs. So whether you're in sports or out sports, we have one that'll suit you. Our website, www.southfloridatribune.com. We have our columnists. We have our media distribution partners. Columnists, first and foremost, David Levin. Every now and then I get motivated to do it. We have the Motor City Monitor, as I'm working on building a relationship with the folks in Metro Detroit, my hometown, and the broadcast will be there as well. Our email address is southfloridatribune@gmail.com. You can follow us on LinkedIn, Scott Morganroth. I'll be more than happy to connect with you there. If you want to hear the audio version of the broadcast, you can do so at Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you think I was talking too fast, it's not as fast as I could be on the road, so I'll give you a audio replay of where to find us, okay? Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. So meanwhile, folks, I hope you've enjoyed this edition of No Limits. My name is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Madmouth. Thank you for joining us on this edition of No Limits. Glad to have David on the broadcast, and as usual, Candy. And I'm looking forward to this being a great three-man or three-person booth, okay? Because I really enjoyed us being able to do this together, and I believe that this is the beginning of a lot of great things for the three of us. So any questions or things you guys want to add before we call it a night?
No, just make sure everybody votes, they mask up, they stay safe. This is still a pandemic that we are dealing with. Please be kind to each other, love one another, and regardless of what happens tonight, please remember that tomorrow is just another day.
Respect.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.
What? I couldn't say it any better. So you know what? God bless everybody, and we'll catch you on the next edition of No Limits. This is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Madmouth. Thank you for joining us once again on this edition of No Limits. Good night, everybody. Be safe. God bless.